tweets are going out. They are. I'm going to retweet this. I'm going to retweet that. Excuse me. Okay, and let's see what's coming in over here. I'll hold off for just a little bit more. Let me see if this starts firing up. All right. Well, that looks like we are ready. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sizes and sorts and persuasions, welcome to another SGGQA podcast Monday morning tech chat show. S. Miller on Periscope. Good morning. Mission Karbala, Fat Produce, greetings Earthlings, and any interdimensional beings too. If there is anyone outside of our plane of existence that's watching this or listening to this, then I welcome your commentary as well, because this is the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show, the first of 2019. I hope everyone had phenomenal end-of-year holiday festivities, whatever it is that you chose to celebrate or not celebrate, or maybe you just wanted to hang out with friends and eat good food. I know I'm definitely of that persuasion. And then also, Happy New Year. Again, 2 weeks in, I think we're still allowed to say Happy New Year. I always put the kibosh at Valentine's Day. If you haven't seen someone by Valentine's Day, wishing someone a Happy New Year's is kind of a jerky thing to do. Philip Morales made it on time. Aditya Anil, hope you are well. Mizzou Mike, hello friends. Aussie Beach Bum, one of my Australian pals. Juan, how are you? Tony 1E, I'm so glad to be back. You start doing the YouTuber or podcast content creator thing, and it's hard to take some time off. It's hard to force yourself to not produce tons of videos, and I was writing up notes on podcasts that then I realized hey, I'm never gonna shoot a show on this. So I am very happy to be back. And Tech with Chris, Tony P, Jerry Spencer. All right, it looks like we're gonna have a fun room. It looks like we're gonna have a fun chat. I'm really excited. I'm really stoked. I'm gonna save housekeeping for the end of the podcast because we got a little bit that we need to talk about, just in terms of strategizing and device reviews and again, the further evolution of this YouTube channel. But I want to jump straight into some news and some headlines. Again, there are so many things that have happened over the last 3 weeks. Actually, over the last month. I think we're now almost at 1 month since my last podcast. So, excuse me. I'm also going to try and keep my voice from completely failing on me as we go through this podcast. So you might hear me start to consciously get a little bit quieter if I feel like my voice is getting a little rough. I'm going to be sipping regularly ASMR style from these delicious coffee mugs, which you can get under my YouTube videos from whatever merch retailer I've partnered up with. I don't even know. I haven't been paying attention. And then I'm going to save CES discussion for the second half of this video because I actually forgot to pull up some video files. So throughout the podcast, I'll be trying to get those up too. Okay. Let's talk some news. The Monday Morning Tech Chat Show, we like to focus on news stories that deserve a little bit more attention, stories that might have fallen through the cracks, and that's a pretty big window. I'm not going to go back over an entire month's worth of news. Just catching up on stuff that's happened sort of around the CES week. But one of the stories that's starting to gain a little traction, something I thought was kind of interesting to see. Let me pull my screen share up. Oh, good. The cookie prompt is now telling me that this is from the Next Web, which I will not be clicking on their cookie info here. I'm gonna have to make sure I use a tougher ad blocker on them. But alleged OnePlus 7 leaks hint at a notchless design and maybe a slider. Very interesting. Now, actually, not that interesting. Excuse me. From the article, the OnePlus rumor mill has started early this year, and we have our first leaks of its next device out in the wild. According to images posted by /Leaks, the company will ditch the notch for its upcoming OnePlus 7. The image shows an alleged prototype of the device in a tan case with no notch and an all-screen design. It suggests that OnePlus might opt for a slider mechanism to accommodate the front camera and some of the components. Okay. I don't think anyone's too surprised at the idea that they might go with a slider. I don't think this leak is particularly exciting just because we don't see a notch. What I think is going to be really interesting is I feel 2019 will be that year of getting rid of the notch. And any company that's putting out some kind of notched phone in 2019 is gonna face design criticisms. You know, for 2017 through 2018, we had that initial iPhone 10. Oh, look at the unibrow; it's so terrible. And then we had a lot of tech YouTubers. You know what? I think people just need to get over the notch. You just need to learn to live with it. And I think that was BS. The notch was one of the worst design aspects to ever face all-screen devices. This notion that we had to cut into one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of using a smartphone so that we could still find room to include a selfie camera and just fake bezels around the device, right? Because you didn't really get more screen. You kind of got like ears that could be used for part of your notification strip, and then it's been all around a terrible aspect of design. So I feel like this will be that time where companies are going to be examining ways that they can eliminate the notch and get us back to unmolested screens. It's like I don't have a better word for that. I'm sorry. But one of the things, I'm going to pull this up because I finally got to spend some time with this at CES, and I'm really mad. I've got like a little bit of a story to tell about it because I was not particularly impressed with their PR. I'm going to drop the volume on this. You have to give me 1 second here, guys. Sorry, I didn't plan this very well, but I want to get this part as part of a screen share. Video capture window, VLC video source. Is it gonna do it? No, it's not gonna do it. Sorry, I'm doing this live, and I know this is terrible podcasting. I'm gonna leave this all in the show. Let me remove this. All right, let's try this one more time. Window capture. Add existing. Hit OK. Oh, create new. Okay. Window capture 2. And oh, and now the video ended. Hold on. Oh, I don't even think it's showing. It's not showing, is it? I'm failing at this all around. This is the worst. Man, I really wanted that to work. Okay. So what oh, you know what might work, and this will be kind of silly? Let me try dropping this into my browser. I'm sorry, bear with me here for just a sec. I'm doing it live. Haha. Haha, take that, OBS. All right, let me go back into screen share. So what I finally got to spend a little time with was the Nubia X. This is a dual screen phone where the back of the phone also has an OLED display, and it acts as a fully useful screen. I am silly excited about this idea, this design element, because then when you're taking selfies, you're actually using the best cameras on the phone. This is the thing I don't get. I've never been able to understand about the way that we've been sacrificing some features, borders, bezels, practical area, practical application, so that we can include terrible cameras on the front. Selfie cameras suck. They are not good cameras. But we keep saying, well, we gotta have something up here. We got a little teardrop notch, or we're gonna have, you know, like a smaller, you know, eyebrow cutout, something like that. Those cameras blow. I shot all of CES 2019 on my LG V40. I never used the front-facing cameras, even when I was shooting video of myself. I shot everything blind from the rear-facing cameras. If I had a screen here that could fully use all of the camera app that LG includes, then I would have been much better off. In fact, even if I had used the selfie camera, the thing that always pisses me off about selfie camera sides of camera apps is if the phone has good manual controls, good video controls, the second you go into selfie mode, it's like the dumbest, like, I don't know, push the button, I'll take a picture mode. I hate that so much. And then with, excuse me, with the Nubia concept here, let me just, I paused the video, but just showing this right here. So they still have full manual controls, full portrait mode, and then this part of the display mimics the rest of the phone. So you don't lose out on things like video calling. You're fine, you're good. Everything still functions, it's just you have a slightly smaller screen when you go to video call or when you want to take a selfie. That is not a compromise. That is a benefit for being able to utilize the best cameras on your phone. But the funny thing was, the hilarious thing was, so I go up to the Nubia booth and I asked them like, hey, you know, I'm interested in some of your phones. You're like, oh, well, this one's not coming to North America. We're giving this one to North America, and it's the gaming phone. And like, it was Thursday of CES, so he was probably done talking, but he was like, I'm shutting this conversation down, and he was very French. So I point out to him, you're like, well, this is what I've been talking about, and here's some of the things that I want to work on. And yeah, but this is regional markets, China only, so you won't get it, so you can't talk about it. It's like, well, only 25% of my audience is from North America. The rest of my audience is spread out around the world, and I've talked about Oppo and Huawei and Xiaomi. This isn't me trying to do a hit piece on a phone that isn't ready for prime time. This is me wanting to talk about your product. And especially, this is a design element that I've been dying for. I just, as soon as people started talking about notches, the number one thing I wanted the most was a phone that somehow let me use the good cameras for selfie photos and selfie video. You know, like Oppo had the concept where the camera would rotate. Well, you got to have a bezel for that, and somehow that became a design element non grata. So we can't have that. But if I could have a screen on the back of the phone, you can eliminate all of the hardware on the front face. You no longer have to have a front-facing camera. I would happily give up wireless charging for the back glass to be functional. Not just glass for the sake of glass. Like, put a screen back there. It's glass. You could actually do something with that surface area. And then, again, like I've been saying, you can use everything on the camera. And the fact that this one is so much smarter than what we got with the Axon M. If you remember, the Axon M, you would turn the phone around because it had two screens on that weird flippy hinge, but the second you turned it in a way where it thought it was being used for selfies, it would do the dumbest thing ever and revert the camera app to the just push the button for the selfie mode, which is so regressive it makes me want to throttle an engineer. So I'm getting very little traction with this guy, and I eventually pull up my phone and I show him, like, you know, I've been editing everything from my V40, and I scrub past, in one of my vlogs, I met up with Enabong from Bored at Work. And I scrub by Enabong, and very briefly you see Supersaf in the background. Enabong and Supersaf were hanging out. And the guy at the booth goes, oh, whoa, hold on. And it's like, oh, who's that in your video? And I go, oh, that's my buddy Enabong, and that's Supersaf. Oh, Supersaf, wee. And you're like, really? You're gonna nerd out about me being in the physical proximity of Supersaf in a video I'm showing you that I'm editing, and you're sitting here stonewalling me on any kind of review or hardware? Awesome. Okay. And then he suddenly changed his tune a little bit. But he's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about content creators. You didn't think about content creators with a high-end dual-screen phone that allows for manual video and photo control from the rear-facing cameras when used in a selfie mode? You guys aren't good at this. So, short story incredibly long. I've been seeing some people say, like, legendary scoop, what doesn't make sense to me is why manufacturers just don't place flagship cameras on the front. So there are some design considerations with the top of a phone housing, where you put radios and antennas, the depth of a nicer sensor. A nicer sensor comes with surface area. So the bigger that sensor, the deeper and the wider you need to put good glass in front of that sensor. And then you also have to have an earpiece speaker. Some other phones like to do design accents, like having stereo speakers. Like you've got to there. It's not impossible. Someone could do it. They could make a good play of it. But then also you've got some other concerns too with like the width of those camera sensors, how much glass you put on the front. And then also distortion. You might have a lot of barrel distortion if you try to put a slightly wider selfie camera on the front. So it's I'm not saying it's not a design challenge. It is definitely a challenge. But my feeling on the matter is sliders will be an easier solution, but one that might be more costly for consumers. Moving parts, maybe less durability, and we might be sacrificing, for those people who really care about having the highest grade of water resistance, you probably can't attain that with the slider. For me, I think the dual screen makes way more sense. It cuts down on component costs, manufacturing costs. You don't have to engineer hinges or slider mechanisms, and you get to get rid of a piece of hardware. You get to sacrifice trying to figure out a place for a crappy selfie camera and only go with the cameras on the back. You only have to have as many, if you want to have 4 cameras on the back, you can have 4 cameras on the back, but that's all you need to do to set that down. But yeah, I was not impressed with the guy at the Nubia booth. I have his card, and I'm gonna follow up with him, and I'm gonna drop him a line. He seemed really interested in when I started talking about design and philosophy. Like, I wanted to do a video featuring the Nubia X. I didn't really care about a review because it's not really a phone I can use. Doesn't mean it's not a phone I can talk about. And he started doing this thing, well, maybe if there's more interest, in 2nd or 3rd generation. And I stopped him and I said, there will not be more interest if no one sees it or hears about it. And he kind of went, oh, yeah. It was Thursday of CES for me, too. And I was not impressed with his arguments as to why someone should not talk about one of his phones. So, short story, incredibly long. I want everyone watching this podcast and people who are tech fans, if you're sharing my podcast, awesome, you rock. I really want to kind of keep score. What companies are helping us do more exciting things for design in 2019 so that we can solve some of these issues with an all-screen front face of selfie cameras, of notches? I don't believe that leadership is going to come from Samsung or from Apple. I think we're going to have to look to other companies to find exciting solutions. And then I also want to celebrate those companies that are trying to find some retro solutions. When Huawei looks like they might be bringing back headphone jacks on the next P series phone. Motorola also might be returning to headphone jacks. I finally flippin' got my hands on a Razer phone. And I love going back to Sony style hard-edged rectangular design, right? So we've got these opportunities where we can do different things or build specific phones for practical concerns and still do it with a little bit of style, a little bit of panache, and something that sets them apart from just the generic trend of, can we copy Samsung, can we copy Apple? That is what I think is going to be really exciting to watch over 2019. Because I don't think it's going to come I'm not particularly excited about 5G. The next generation of mobile chipsets sound awesomely powerful, but what can we do with that power if we don't have good software or good services to take advantage of that? But to me, 2019 will be an interesting year for design. Can we crawl out of this horrible trench of molested screens and bad design accents and unrepairable devices and get back to something that I think services consumers in a more practical way? Aditya Anil. Ooh, Razer. Will that push Juan into RGB mania mode? Aditya, I don't know if you knew this, but hold on, I gotta reach. Unfortunately, I've been on Team Chroma for a while now, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit that there is something really happy about having my phone match my laptop, even if it's just the logo glowing on the lid. Don't buy phones for that reason, but it makes me feel good. I don't know. we can move on to the next topic. Let's see. Excuse me. The Royal, how is it pronounced? Royal, looks like trash. I did get to spend a little time hands-on with that. We'll talk about that. Punch hole screen phones are already selling here in China. That's so much better design. Tony 1E, I think that's going to be a nice step in the right direction because that follows right into Goran Petrovic until camera can be unnoticed below the screen, like under the display. This whole conversation is pointless. I would even argue that a camera under a screen is an engineering challenge that we probably don't need to entertain. That it will be easier and more cost effective to not block the optics of your camera, to not potentially degrade the optics of your camera or wreck the circular areas of that display for having translucency, so you can see through it when those pixels aren't activated or when you need to use the camera. You still have a layer in front of that camera. I'm not saying we won't get there. I'm just saying, at least for the next 2 or 3 generations of mobile device, it doesn't make sense to me to over-engineer the solution that way when we could have a perfectly reasonable solution by just including a secondary display. That to me is the easiest way to make that move happen. Fat Produce, how about Sony going back to the slab design, side fingerprint scanner, and not doing an XZ4 compact? Fat Produce is Andrew Wallace. He's my co-host on the Geek Book Club. I think he just recently picked up an XZ1 compact, which is still one of my all-time favorite phones, and it's still a screamer. Like, I fired it up just to kind of run some updates, and I was seriously considering bringing it as my backup phone in Vegas. But even just running those updates on that Qualcomm 835 in the low-res display, like, that thing is such a little screamer still. It's an awesome little phone. So if Sony is planning on going back to something more of that design for the XZ4, I'll be really happy. But I do miss having more high-end premium options in smaller form factors. Like, just the fact that the closest we can get is something like a Galaxy S9, or I guess like the smaller Pixel is also a pretty petite phone. But I want that perfect one thumb experience, and it doesn't look like we're gonna get it back. Okay, moving right along. I've got a bunch of news stories that we're going to just try and fly through here. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but let me go back into... Well, I can get rid of this. Window capture 2. And Netflix hit with a choose-your-own-adventure lawsuit over Black Mirror Bandersnatch. From the article, this is from Polygon. Netflix's first interactive movie, Black Mirror Bandersnatch, makes no bones about its choose-your-own-adventure inspiration, and that's reportedly caught the eye of the series' original publisher, ChooseCo, a publishing company specializing in children's books, is suing Netflix for infringing on the company's choose-your-own-adventure trademark. I think this is going to be a really interesting legal story to watch, because I don't know that you can copyright or patent the choose-your-own-adventure structure, but I wonder if they'll be able to defend choose-your-own-adventure as a trademark, the phrase choose-your-own-adventure. And if that's what they're defending, then to me, it would it would seem, excuse me, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize again. I'm going to be sort of dry coughing throughout most of this podcast. It would seem to me that you could go in with some ADR and just remove any character whoever says the phrase choose your own adventure. So that's what I'm going to be really curious to see. Do the courts agree with ChooseCo? If the courts agree with ChooseCo, what is the argument that ChooseCo is making, and what is it that they're actually defending? Because I don't believe they'll have a very good argument for defending the process by which you choose the next action in a book. But I think they could make a legitimate claim to say, choose your own adventure, that phrase is off limits. So I'll be curious to see how it goes. Bandersnatch, isn't that the guy? Isn't that the dude who plays Sherlock Holmes on BBC? Oh, DTNL. I'll never get tired of um, Bandersnatch cummerbunds puns. Let me get this back down to right here. Keith Richardson, I do not have the flu. I avoided the CES plague, but I also spent a week in Vegas, which sucked all of the moisture out of my body. So recovery has been kind of slow. Keith Richardson again, can we copy strike Netflix? I actually do have some commentary on YouTube copyright issues that we're gonna have to check in with in just a bit. All right. It wouldn't be an SGGQA podcast if we didn't talk about Apple's inevitable demise. Obviously, Apple is doing fine. They're still the most profitable company on the planet. They're facing a very challenging year, but we're going to have to suffer through probably 6 months of the sky is falling headlines and stock market corrections. They were once the trillion-dollar company, and now the mighty have fallen. And yet they still pulled in, $85 billion last quarter. So we need to talk about Apple as a force in the tech industry, but I also feel like the proportionality is off, right? The stock market is a terrible judge of the actual health of a company and really only represents how speculators feel about a company, and damn if the stock market doesn't let us down on a regular basis. But we do need to talk about some Apple numbers here. Excuse me. So this first one is from The Economist, and this is Apple succumbs to the smartphone malaise. This is actually, I'm going to have show notes on SomeGadgetGuy.com and under the various videos that this is going to be on. But this is actually, I feel, one of the more nuanced and even-handed examinations of where we're at. Because obviously you put Apple in the title of an article and you're going to get more click-throughs. But the entire focus of the article from The Economist, while focusing mostly on Apple, at least documents and details the entire global smartphone industry, where we've hit peak smartphone. We've been in peak smartphone since 2017. We're now on the down cycle of consumers feeling like they need to replace their phone every year. And I believe the average length of ownership is up to something around 26 or 28 months. So we're even eclipsing what we used to have with 2-year contracts. Now, some of the focus is in this article is Apple obviously is charging a ridiculous amount of money for a normal smartphone experience, and that just gets exacerbated when you start looking at import-export costs, how much iPhones sell for in other countries around the world. But they don't lean so heavy on just, oh, well, it's China and those damn millennials, like so many other articles have been. Excuse me. So this is going to be a good read. I'm not going to go too deep into all of this, but they do go on to point out that this is going to be dangerous territory for Apple in the near term. I wholly believe Apple, they've got a loyal fan base. A couple revisions and maybe some other special deals or better trade-ins, stuff like that, will keep their consumers happy in future generations of device. Maybe if their tablets didn't ship bent, that would also help. But I think it's going to be harder for consumers to ignore some of the generational differences coming up. I am not sold on foldable phones and 5G. I don't think that's going to make smartphones so much more exciting that we see that boom again of people rushing out to buy devices. That doesn't do it for me, and most of the people I'm going to be talking to aren't likely to feel like, oh, well, that's going to be a good use of $1,500 is to make sure I have the 5Gs before 5G towers go up in my neighborhood and that my phone can snap in half if I bend it the wrong way. That is... But when you see that kind of evolution and when you see that kind of boundary pushing, that kind of that kind of excitement in another area of the industry, I think what it's going to lead to are consumers of this era, of the iPhone 8 to iPhone XS era, holding off on any future iPhones until Apple shows that they're catching up with design trends and that they've got good support for 5G. Not just a first generation Intel radio that kind of supports it, but might be stepping on Qualcomm patents. We're talking like legit, actual 5G. That could be as late, depending on the carrier, that could be as late as 2022, which means I think we're building another recipe for iPhone consumers to sit on their phones for as long as possible. Maybe not iPhone 6S owners currently. They'll probably need to swap at some point. But again, if someone's on an iPhone 8 now, why upgrade if you don't actually get to benefit from any of that stuff until 2022? You're going to upgrade in 2022. So you'd be looking at another 4-year run. That's bad for Apple. Apple is the most successful tech company at becoming a lifestyle brand. I've said this on numerous podcasts. It's dangerous for a lifestyle brand to lose that fire of its fan base, that emotional excitement over unboxing a new product and incorporating it and showing it off. And, you know, it's why iPhones and Macs come in different colors for different generations of devices, because it would be unseemly to be seen with last season's iPhone, right? You know, you want what was new and hot and fresh, and you want that to be broadcast to those of you in your social circles who care about those things. It's not looking good in the near term IMO, because I don't think that Apple has the manpower, the resources in terms of talent to find those solutions, iterate quickly and aggressively, and not only catch up to the market, but find ways that they can lead the market. My biggest frustration with the iPhone XS is not that it's not a great phone. It's that it only catches us up to great experiences that I've had from other manufacturers, and that you have to pay a significant premium with that Apple logo to get something that feels kind of the same as something in the $500 to $700 territory in Android land. So with more consumers starting to think about their purchases rationally and not emotionally, that is terrible position for a lifestyle company to be in. It would be like if Supreme came out with this year's hotness and then all of the skaters went, you know, but I can get a hoodie at Target, which is going to be just as good for like $20, you know? That's what Apple consumers are starting to sort of feel around. I could just stick with this year's Supreme hoodie. I don't need next year's Supreme hoodie. You can't sustain that level of fervor. And I think it totally shows, especially for these last 2 years of iPhone launches. I used to go out and cover all of the people standing in line at Apple stores, right? Remember, people would camp out? People still kind of do, but the news didn't care. That's real bad. That's real bad when you don't see NBC, Fox, KTLA, all hanging out and asking people like, hey, you're a freak show. Why are you camping out for a phone? Didn't happen. The streets were dead. I went out at around 6 during the XS launch, and I was walking around, and there's an Apple store in my mall, and there's a line of people outside the Apple store. And I go up, and you're like, hey, do you guys have iPhones? And you're like, oh, this is just the line for people who pre-ordered. So wait a minute. I pre-ordered. There's only a line of like 10 people outside the store as the store is opening. You know what? I'm glad I shipped the iPhone to me and it got to me a week later than everyone else. I'm fine with that. All right. For my Project 13, I'd create my own logo for that $20 hoodie as well. I kind of feel like that should be more of a thing. Like, I want to get like iron-on patches and just start making ridiculous like lifestyle urban edge logos until someone like starts asking like, hey, where'd you get that? And it's like, oh, that's the brand I'm going to come up with. It's ESSGEEGEE. It's SGG. Yeah, that's how we roll. One other quick story, and this also kind of ties in Fat Produce in the live chat. I believe that people are starting to see the real cost of Apple's walled garden. Potentially. When ecosystem works, it's huge. But right now, I don't even think Apple's ecosystem is working in their favor. Internationally now, we're also going to be seeing a whole trend of stories like these. This is coming from CNBC. Retailers are slashing iPhone prices across China as consumers say the phones aren't worth the cost. Apple's latest iPhone models are seeing huge discounts, I don't know about huge, from retailers in China. The technology giant recently revised its first quarter sales forecast downward. Experts say a mix of poor pricing strategy and a lack of exciting features compared to local rivals like Huawei has led to the newest iPhone's weak performance in China. Why is the font so big on this? Oh, I made the font super big because I'm old. From the article, Apple's latest iPhone models are facing huge discounts in China. This comes as the top-of-the-line Apple smartphones have posted poor China sales on what experts say are too high prices for the world's largest smartphone market and a lack of innovative features. So, when they're saying huge price discounts, I mean, these are actually fairly sizable. Excuse me. One of the most recent iPhone cost cuts in the country came from Suning, a large Chinese retailer, changed the price of the 128 gig version of the iPhone XR from 6,999 yuan, which is around $1,036, to around $858, shaving off around $178. Similar pricing discounts, but we're still talking about Apple's starting price for an iPhone XS Max in China is the equivalent of $1,628. So I have to claim some privilege here, right? In the United States, I feel iPhones are too expensive for the actual experience you get. But then you look at overseas prices, where in China they're trying to demand a 50% premium. Is that what I'm looking at? Because what is it? Way below your selling price. Oh, it's the 256 gigabyte version of the iPhone XS Max. Okay, so not like a 50% premium, but it's the higher tier model. So, but that's still like a 25% to 30% price hike, accounting for exchange rates and import costs. China doesn't care. They've got local hometown heroes. I mean, you've got a whole army of Oppo, Huawei, Xiaomi brands that are already destroying that market. And I feel like that's bleeding over. So when we hear those rumors about Apple looking at other manufacturing centers, you know, if Apple's going to start trying to get a toehold in countries like India, they've got to find ways to whittle back costs. And one of the ways that you can do that is by employing local and building local, so you're not shipping like all over the place like crazy. That could be an interesting turn for Apple. But again, when we hear that type of commentary, when we hear those types of logistics at play, where is the Apple that's the exciting consumer tech industry? That move, we're going to build a service, distribution, and manufacturing operations in India. That's a Tim Cook thing. Tim Cook is amazing at operations. He is probably the savviest dude on the planet at rolling into countries, utilizing infrastructure, tying up manufacturing lines, and negotiating the best possible conditions for Apple's products to be manufactured and distributed. But he's not a design guy. And right now, I don't have a lot of faith in Apple leadership to come up with the next generation of consumer products that are going to redefine the markets that they step into, right? This is starting to feel like Apple just before Steve Jobs came back, where they were all excited to be selling like corporate printers and Xerox competitors. Like, no one cares about that. No one's excited about that. Now, obviously, Apple isn't that bad off, and they're still posting insane profits. But when so much of your company is built on that lifestyle excitement, you should have some concerns about what the future of that looks like if they can't keep leveraging iOS for the insane growth and the insane profits that they've posted before. Goran Petrovic, base iPhone XR is $1,000 in Serbia. And Serbia isn't even on the list of countries that are on these devices. Serbs who buy iPhones officially in Serbia is either an idiot or desperately wants to stand out. Again, I feel like there's a certain peacocking involved with most of our purchases, right? Some people like to fly under the radar. Some people like sleepers. Like I always wanted to build like a really hot sleeper. Just like take some old like Toyota Avalon, but then gut it, strip it, sport suspension, twin turbo V8, just cram everything in there so that you'd roll up to the line. And you'd see like this little old person family wagon. It's a Toyota Avalon, and then brown, just blow them away. And that's why I just don't care about smartphone pretty design anymore, is because I'm gonna slap a case on it anyway. Like when I show this off, most people just assume that it's some kind of Samsung or iPhone. In fact, I was at several booths like shooting stuff, and you're like, oh, what kind of iPhone is that? Looking at the case. We still have that sort of like block for other brands. But yeah, it's when you want something to kind of complement your fashion sense and your lifestyle, there are options for that. But I feel like for smartphones, they become such a commodity that people just don't care to show them. They aren't the bling that they were 10 years ago. All right. From Sean H. They have never come up with the next big thing. They wait for someone else to make it and then figure out how to make a sexier version of it. So Sean H., I've definitely mentioned that in previous podcasts. I don't feel Apple is living up to their previous reputation, and that's why I think I'm most frustrated. There are so many new raw technologies coming out. So we've got all this buzz about 5G and IoT and home automation and AI and machine learning and robots. There were a ton of robots at CES. But we always used to be able to count on Apple in generations past, as the company that would take those raw technologies and polish them up. Like you were saying, they never invented anything, but they took raw technologies, polished them up, and then got consumers into them as easily as possible. Even thinking back to like the internet, the old school OG iMacs were so helpful for getting an entire generation of less tech savvy consumers connected and online. The iPhone simplified so much of what was problematic about Blackberries and Symbian and Windows Mobile, Palm OS. Well, actually, they kind of ripped off Palm OS and just made it prettier. But I don't feel like they're living up to that anymore. I don't feel like they're taking the next stage of consumer technologies and looking at how to iterate and move those forward either. We'll save CES commentary. Let me get through a couple more news stories. I'm going to blitz through these real fast. I say that all the time, and I never manage to live up to that. Let me get a little bit more water. And if you're listening to this, I don't know, maybe this is where I take an ad break. Who knows? Probably not. Oh, man. Okay. From Yolanda Rowe, it's amazing how often my Samsung, with the Samsung logo, gets, which iPhone is that? Bangs head. Oh, Yolanda, I feel ya. My favorite was walking around with an Honor 8. The Honor 8 is still, I think, the phone I've been asked about the most while I was using it out in public. And it was either, what did you do to your iPhone? It was that blue glass with those really gorgeous diagonal, refractive lines. The comments I always got, what did you do to your iPhone? As if I customized it. What case is that on your iPhone? Or what iPhone is that? No one asked about any other smartphone manufacturers. It made me feel bad because I still think the Honor 8 is probably one of the most beautiful devices ever made. I hate glass backs, but that was one I just wanted to put on a pedestal under museum lighting. So not to use it, not to like as like a daily driver, but to like show it off as like an example of amazing industrial design. Anyway, I digress. We've got some politics we've got to chew through real quick. I'm not gonna read through a ton of this, but this is from Motherboard, and it plays into the next two articles that we've got. This is an article by Joseph Cox. It's a very long article. I'm scrolling through it on the video right now. I need you all to actually take a read through this when I have the show links up and you can see, when you can go through all the show notes. but this is Motherboard, and the title of the article is, "I gave a bounty hunter $300, then he located our phone." The subheading, T-Mobile, Sprint, and AT&T are selling access to their customers' location data, and that data is ending up in the hands of bounty hunters and others not authorized to possess it, letting them track most phones in the country. This is an impressive deep dive through a journalist following the money, essentially. When information gets sold, where does it go? And then who can utilize it and how can you access it? And they detail the relationship between T-Mobile, a third-party vendor that accesses data, who then sells that information off to another company, who delivers it to a bail bond company. I mean, it's very frustrating because we've been given these promises and we've been given these assurances. I mean, ever since the NSA hacking scandal came out, companies and government organizations keep falling back on this. Well, we're just collecting data in aggregate. Okay, well, there's a ton of personally identifiable information that you can totally find an individual. Oh, well, that shouldn't be. And the carriers have been promising, like, oh, well, we're going to stop this type of location tracking, or we're going to stop profiting from it. Immediately, a day after this Motherboard article goes live, we get a response from AT&T that amid calls for a federal investigation, AT&T says it will stop selling location data. This is from the Inquirer, Philly.com. AT&T said Thursday that it will stop selling its customers' location data to third-party service providers after a report this week said the information was winding up in the wrong hands. And what I love about this is AT&T's response is also sort of the, aw shucks, it's not on us. We have these great services, and now people won't be able to utilize them. Here's the actual quote. Sorry, I should probably quote them directly and then make fun of them. Hold on. In light of recent reports about the misuse of location services, we have decided to eliminate all location aggregation services, even those with clear consumer benefits. We are immediately eliminating the remaining services and will be done in March. All right. I love that, like, even the ones our customers really like. Everyone's going to be penalized by the actions of a few bad apples. You're the main bad apple. You're the main, you're the carriers, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. If you were engaged in a policy of selling off consumer location data, you are the bad apple that was spoiling the bunch. All right, there's no other way around that. Oh, someone took all that information we gave them and then did something bad with it. Maybe you shouldn't have been giving consumer location data away. And maybe it's really freaking disgusting that the telecom and the ISP industries, which are profitable, insanely profitable already, are still looking at ways to turn their customers into additional products that they can sell. And again, it would be nice if we had some kind of regulatory oversight, because I think we're long overdue a few little market corrections on how we interact with companies like telecoms, ISPs, and then major internet services like Facebook. One more AT&T story. I'm having fun with this. Okay. So you remember Ajit Pai becomes the head of the FCC after Trump is elected, immediately starts a campaign to gut net neutrality. It was going to foster so much growth and innovation and investment, and it was going to help with jobs, because the big problem was that net neutrality was stopping companies from investing in people and jobs, and that getting rid of net neutrality would just open the floodgates, just open it all up. And one of the last podcasts I did in 2018, that was a big big fat lie. Not only have we not seen any of those promised infrastructure improvements, improvements to competition, net neutrality had nothing to do with competition on the ground. We kept saying that. We kept getting lied to by elected officials. We also saw very clear data that there was far less spending on infrastructure development and investment, and way more companies using tax breaks and net neutrality savings to basically just do stock buybacks. So they would just dump their own money right back into themselves. Well, it's getting even worse. The last AT&T story of this week, AT&T plans to fire 7,000 people despite tax breaks, net neutrality repeal. Now, this is another article. This is a very impassioned editorial. This is not necessarily a news piece. This is an editorial piece from Joel Hruska on Extreme Tech. Again, I'll have links in the show notes. I'm not going to read through all of this article, but Joel does a very good job of remembering what AT&T representatives said in 2017. So Randall Stevenson gave an interview to CNBC on May 4th, 2017, declaring the importance of cutting taxes. Lower taxes drives more investment, drives more hiring, drives greater wages. All of this fits together. If you can have a tax reduction of 35% down to pick your number, 25 or 20%, to think that wouldn't cause additional investment is nonsensical. I know exactly what AT&T would do. We would invest more. And now here, and he also details another very good quote. Every $1 billion in investment we make is 7,000 additional jobs. What an interesting number. That was my addition. We have to put that capital into the ground or on cell towers and so forth. And these are 7,000 jobs wearing hard hats. These are high-paying jobs with good benefits. The correlation is very, very tight. If we have to make that kind of hiring and do that kind of hiring, that drives productivity, which drives what? Wage growth. So AT&T reported, this is from the article. This is from Extreme Tech. AT&T reported a $19 billion tax windfall, January of 2018. We gave AT&T $19 billion when they're already probably not really fulfilling their tax burden. They're probably not really fulfilling their investment burden. They're selling off our location data. They're increasing rates for subscribers and for consumers. And they're already playing dumb games with the future of 5G. You know, like they're going to have faux 5G labeled phones, just like they did with LTE. Remember how late they were to the LTE game, and they put that 4G logo on phones that were just HSPA. So yeah, they got everything they wanted. They can throttle, they can sell off consumer data, they can prioritize, they can fast lane. There is no regulation on the pipe that you get to on the internet. And in addition to that, they also got the Trump tax breaks. And now they're laying off 7,000 people. Remember, every $1 billion in additional investment we make is 7,000 additional jobs. Well, none of that $19 billion is really going towards investment or infrastructure or improvements. It goes to shareholders. It never goes, again, the corporation exists solely to provide value to shareholders. So they're going to try and get as much value out of their investment as they can. They'll not only, they'll kill the golden goose to try and get all of the eggs out of it in one straight shot. Aditya Anil, can we copy strike AT&T? From Yolanda Rowe, Juan, you knew the personnel cuts were coming. They're following the typical game plan. All corporations, to try and make their books look better, do beginning of the year layoffs to try and appease investors. It's the standard game plan. What's getting really frustrating is just how often we're being lied to and how infrequently do news agencies have any follow through on it. I mean, if this story gets any bit of a blip on a CNBC or an MSNBC or something like that, it's the nerdy tech story and, oh, just another sad aspect of the current economy, instead of actually following through on everything that Joel's done here in Extreme Tech and actually holding quotes to those people, holding them accountable for the things they said in the past, or even just reminding people that they said these things in the past and that they were lies. They were bald-faced lies. And we all knew that that was exactly not the truth. And this to me was why it was so disgusting, the way that the media handled Sundar Pichai's testimony in front of a congressional hearing. Excuse me. That they all focused on the one guy who didn't know the difference between Android and iOS. Like, yeah, that's embarrassing, and we need to demand more of our elected officials. But Sundar Pichai made some very specific comments about relationships with China, about censoring content, removing content from platforms, and Google's commitment to open and fair discourse. But we didn't actually get those comments delivered on the news. We didn't actually get that commentary handed to the people unless you went through and you watched an almost 3-hour C-SPAN live feed, which I did. Those are the kind of comments that we need to have access to later. So, let's say Google does come up with a firewall-approved Chinese product, and we decide that we don't like that from a company that has that much of our personal data, and we want to choose to do business in some other way. Google shouldn't have the opportunity to say, oh, well, we've never said that we weren't. They said it in a congressional hearing that is on the record, and now we should be able to hold them to those comments when we see that they've now violated that. And that goes for every company. The actual hearing isn't usually of very much substance, but it puts people on the record. It puts politicians on the record, and it puts CEOs on the record. And that's why we need to actually do a better job of talking about this stuff. If we were to run videos talking about AT&T lying to the people, I bet we would have a very, adding to the negative sentiment of AT&T, right? That's how we affect change in the marketplace. Whether or not you're totally free market libertarian or, practically socialist liberal, the public perception of how these companies operate is critical for both ends of that argument, right? For liberals and conservatives. If you want free market, we need free access to this kind of information so that people can make informed decisions on who they do business with. And then if you're more left-leaning like I am, then you also want harder regulatory actions and more punitive penalties for the misuse of that position. So, excuse me. Philly Tech Reviews. Con effing artist. Aditya Anil, is it possible for a tech tuber like you to get a face-to-face interview with the officials in the boardroom of AT&T? Cut out the middleman and ask the officials the questions raised here. No, well, definitely not me. I'm not big enough. I'm not on anyone's radar. I used to have a pretty chummy relationship with AT&T PR. There was a very small PR company that used to work AT&T just for Southern California, and they were amazing. I loved working with them. I got great access to Uverse stuff and the beginnings of trying to roll out fiber in LA and some of the challenges of that. Like not necessarily all just the PR, but I was talking to AT&T engineers, like the hardcore nerds deep in the dungeons of AT&T routing fiber optic cable, and talking to them like legitimately about what some of the issues were in California and how California politics does also get in the way too. It's not all political action that's going to solve these problems. But AT&T stopped doing business with them, and so I haven't really maintained any kind of relationship with them. And you look at my stats, no one's going to want to take the potential black eye. Like if I get someone to say something that's not good for AT&T corporate, no one wants to take that risk with a channel my size, and a channel larger than mine would probably throw more softballs just because you want to keep people happy and you don't want to dredge up too much ire. From Mark Eric Lane, we need younger, more tech-savvy politicians regardless of political affiliation. We need politicians that are more reflective of who we are and what we believe. The heart and soul of the American debate lies between. Sorry, let me rephrase this one more time. And I've said this before on previous podcasts, so apologies to people who've heard me say this. The heart and soul of the future of American politics lies at the intersection in between the social democrats and the libertarians. Those are the only two groups of people that are finding inspiration and aspiration in the political process. The socialist-leaning liberals aspire to raise up the lowest amongst a community. The libertarians aspire to raise up and to respect the value of the work of the individual. And only between those two ideologies will we find the right compromises to represent the whole of the United States. The current trend of like Trump-style conservatives and career Democrats isn't really gonna get the job done for the future. They're in deadlock. So what we need are some radicals to help shake that up. And it's sad that some of the conservative ideology that I very much disagree with in terms of the libertarian side of the argument is considered crazy, just like, Ocasio-Cortez is looked at as some dingbat when she's got a couple good ideas that we used to use in the past, like higher marginal tax rates and stuff like that. People can freak out about that, but we used to do that. And it used to work pretty well. So that's not crazy. It's not. It just might be unpopular with certain segments of the population. That is the joining point. And those are the voices that we really need speaking up in the political process. For Mark Eric Lane. And what I mean is it would be nice to have more elected officials born this side of the Nixon administration. Sorry. RIP headphone users. All right, let's just get through these next two stories real quick. I'm at 1 hour and I want to spend some time talking about CES. This is in happier news, but with a little dash of frustration too. This side of the Nixon administration. Okay, I'm better. I'm a professional podcast host again. I'm totally doing it. I'm winning the day. And this is from ifixit.org. I'm super excited about this article from Julia Bluff. 8 states have introduced right-to-repair legislation. Apple to oppose. The dominoes keep This is from the article. The dominoes keep tumbling. Last week, 2 more states, Illinois and Tennessee, introduced right-to-repair legislation, bringing the total number of states considering pro-repair laws this year to 8, up from 3 last year. But don't break out the victory dance. It's going to be a bumpy ride from bill to law. According to Motherboard, Apple is gearing up to oppose the legislation in at least 1 state. The proposed right-to-repair laws, known as the Fair Repair... Oh, man, sorry, I'm not keeping my voice intact. The proposed right-to-repair laws, known as the Fair Repair Act in some states, are designed to make it easier for people to repair their broken electronic equipment like cell phones, computers, appliances, cameras, and even tractors. The legislation would require manufacturers to release repair information to the public and sell spare parts to owners and independent repair shops. If passed, the laws would give consumers more options than just the manufacturer for repair. This is actually going to be a really exciting fight with a little bit more consumer momentum. Like we said earlier, look at Apple products, for example. iPhone users holding onto their phones much longer. I'm anticipating a further cool down on the immediate year-to-year upgrades from the Apple loyal fan base, and it'll start to shift. That loyalty to Apple means I use an Apple product, but I hold on to it for a really long time. We saw how popular the cheap battery replacements were last year after Apple got caught throttling. This is another fight where if we can stop proprietary design elements and, withholding repair information from other outlets and sources, yes, some people will be harmed by doing business with unreputable or disreputable repair shops. That's gonna be a problem. But you know what? It's already a problem now because of the current relationship that Apple has with third-party repair sites and how consumers are already getting burned in that degree. So I feel this is the right fix to make this better. Again, we talk about regulations and we talk about how the government might get involved. If companies were doing business in a way that wasn't horrifically anti-consumer, for you being able to hold on to your investment as long as possible, repair your investment, then we wouldn't need the government to step in. But Apple has been able to utilize government agencies and government resources to prevent third-party manufacturers from getting quality repair parts. They hide behind the DMCA and they claim, free speech issues when they try to silence those that put out good repair information or repair guides. So if Apple is going to leverage the government to protect their de facto monopoly on iOS, then unfortunately we do need to look at legislation and we do need to look at laws to counteract that, to get the pendulum to swing back so that we have some more ownership over over the products that we buy. Right now, it really feels like you buy an iPhone and you've purchased a license to use the iPhone, but you don't really own it. Not really. And that to me is not how things should go. And then also Sean H. just recently got my iFixit toolkit. I'm going to put a shout out. I mean, I pulled this article from ifixit.org, and obviously they're sourcing some information from Motherboard too, but iFixit has been an amazing resource. So I am going to be buying a repair kit for my wife's old Moto G5 just because I hate that thing had a busted screen. It was such a pretty little phone. And their repair kits are awesome. Great high quality tool sets. I don't have any affiliate with them. I don't have any partnership with them. They are not paying to sponsor or broadcast. I just really like the work that they're doing. So do business with iFixit and then find other companies that you like doing business with. And then also don't be afraid to crack open your own glowing rectangles so that, you can fix things or just understand how they work, or, don't be too concerned about letting out all the magic smoke. Right? Okay. One more quick article, because this is taking things up to another degree in terms of right to repair. But this is across the Atlantic. From Mark Eric Lane, my girlfriend is still clinging to her iPhone SE because she doesn't want a larger phone and wants to stick with iOS. It would be great if we could not just repair, but upgrade our own devices. Mark Eric Lane, I think you need to change that girlfriend into a fiance, because she obviously has amazing taste. The iPhone SE is still, IMO, the best iPhone Apple has ever, will ever make. Every time I pick up my XS, I really wish I was using my iPhone SE instead. I think you need to put a ring on that and keep it and lock that down, because that is a woman of incredible taste and culture. I'm not joking. Do that thing, win the day. Okay. So moving right along, one last story here. This is from the Independent, independent.co.uk. Waste reduction law could force manufacturers to repair broken goods. Right to repair legislation aims to alleviate waste and make products easier to fix. So in the UK, or no, this is a proposal through the European Union. They're taking some of this notion of right to repair one step further, and then also tasking manufacturers with minimizing waste. That's another huge aspect of this debate. So much labor, so much energy, both, human energy and actual electric, let's keep the lights on energy, carbon footprints, logistics, travel, and then just dignity. If you've really looked up close the working conditions of the people that are tasked with the final stages of assembling a phone, that's pretty rough work. It's upsetting when all of that effort, all of that energy, all of that manufacturing, all of the rare earth metals, conflict minerals, countries that are waging war over specific resources, all of that gets dumped into something that gets casually tossed into a purse and will probably have a smashed screen a month after they use it. And then like a year later, maybe they just want a new one and they get rid of it. The consumer side of this is one thing. I don't know what really helps us move the needle on consumer behavior except for continuing to hit the pocketbook, which Apple shows us you keep raising prices and people hold on to their older gadgets longer. But the manufacturing side of this, the industrial side of this, we do need to start tasking companies with being better global citizens, right? Right now, they get to subsidize their profits by abusing the environment and making countries, taxpayers, clean up, foot the bill for fixing those problems. If they're going to be a part of making the problem, I feel those corporations also need to be a part of solving that problem. So again, if good corporate citizens aren't going to do it on their own, then we need to look at what else we can do to leverage to change that behavior. The current model is unsustainable. The current model will not continue. What we need to do is find ways to encourage positive action so that we can fix these problems and everyone still have some cool stuff to play with, still be groovy and have fun. That's the gig. So again, in addition to right to repair, California is also becoming a state to propose right to repair laws. It's not just, can I get a kit to fix my phone? It's, what are all these corporations doing with natural resources, with waste and byproducts, with recycled devices? It needs to go back. I had a very eye-opening conversation with an electronics component manufacturer who shall remain nameless because we were off the record, talking about high-end PC parts. And that right now, the current model for a lot of PC manufacturers and PC components manufacturers is that they will recycle certain parts of, like, you get a motherboard that gets recycled. But a major aspect of that is really just, well, they try and extract all of the precious metals out of it, but then the rest of it just gets ground up. And it's not like a clean facility that the manufacturer made. It just goes out to whoever the lowest contractor is who bids for that gig. So some dude in Singapore could say, like, I'll do it for a penny a motherboard, and then he just gets a ton of motherboards, a literal, like, a weight of ton, not a lot of motherboards, like a physical ton of motherboards, and they all get ground up, and he gets to keep all of the gold out of that, but then all the waste material is probably just dumped somewhere. And then that's up to us to fix that. You know, it's up to the taxpayers of the local area, or that area is just toxic and poisonous and dead. So those are the types of things that we really need to start being more mindful of. And we don't have a lot of time to affect positive change in terms of our environment and how we can affect that positive change. People talking about upgrading stuff and MacBook Pros, but from Wii Brew Lover, I upgraded my old laptop to have 4 gigabytes of RAM, but it only made a small improvement in performance since Vista is garbage. Oh, poor Vista. It is garbage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're stuck with that Wii Brew Lover. Yolanda Rowe, that conversation of MacBooks, talking about an older MacBook that still had an Ethernet port. One of the Newegg Ninjas, the guy who, Brian, who was shooting most of our content on the show floor, is looking at upgrading his laptop, and he's totally stuck because he has an older MacBook and he doesn't want to get a newer MacBook. And you're like, I don't know what to tell you except it's worth it to shop some PCs since you do most of your work in Adobe. But that's a shitty conversation to have. That's my one swear, my PG-13 swear of this live stream. It's a terrible conversation to have. Like, you shouldn't have to swap ecosystems just because a company like Apple has completely abandoned you for what you need. But, you know, looking at what some of the newer gaming laptops coming out, or, I mean, actually workstation laptops too, but damn if gaming PCs haven't just been blowing up lately. Just some really exciting stuff coming out in mobile computing. So, I think that's a good segue and a good transition to start talking about CES. CES 2019. I think I might make that the jingle. It's a terrible jingle. I shouldn't do that. So I'm gonna just pull this up here so that I can and kind of play a couple little clips and stuff. I had a lot of fun at Vegas in Vegas this year, and again, we was out covering the show for Newegg. So oh, it would help if it's gonna reset the volume every single time I do that, isn't it? Here, I'm gonna do this little video clip right here while I talk about traveling on an airplane and hitting the ground in Vegas and meeting up with Trisha Hirschberger and the Newegg Ninjas, and it's always so much energy working up to the show floor, but then you get there and you're like, yeah, this is where I want to be. I'm Sharil Abdul Rahman. How RGB was your CES? I had lots of RGB for my CES. My CES was like all RGB. Okay, so if we're talking RGB, let me God, I got to move these windows around. One of the main RGBs that I RGB'd was talking to the folks at Corsair. Let me pull up Corsair because they had some killer stuff. So like their pre-built systems looking really sharp. Their new Vengeance PC, some real pretty work right there. Yeah. And then they had this crazy test bench. So they have all these new like RGB modules in RAM. And again, if you're really stoked on all the pretty lights and stuff, that's like super awesome and exciting. But I was really interested to see their Corsair One. So that's it's an all-in-one PC. It looks a little like a Mac Pro. Apple made that Darth Vader diaper genie design, and so Corsair did something similar, but it looks way cooler, and it's a lot easier to crack it open and upgrade individual components when you get inside of it. So yeah, the RGB-ness was kind of all over the place, and especially when you see silly stuff. Like I was at ASUS, and they were showing off one of their ROG gaming backpacks with an RGB strip built into it. So that's just silly. So yeah, I don't know what you need from that. But the flip side of that was I think ASUS was showing off some stuff that was a lot more sophisticated. So like the Zephyrus has a really clean look, some really clean lines on it. Another gaming laptop that's just insanely thin, insanely powerful. And then they actually showed it's another trend. Let me see if I can scooch that back. So if you look at the little circuit board over on the side, we're finally getting back to upgradable RAM and upgradable components in portable PCs. And that to me was a huge trend that I didn't think got nearly enough commentary. Dell was showing off their new Alienware, which I think you can even upgrade the CPU on the new Alienware. And then I don't know if I got a video of it. Let me see if I can find it. I might not have. Is this it? Oh, this is the mothership. So this is the mothership from ASUS, where instead of having a laptop, it's really a vertical all-in-one desktop that folds up into about the same size as a 17-inch laptop. And then I'm like, it's one of those things I'm mad I didn't think of the design first because heat rises. So why do we have fans that like dissipate heat like out and down when you could have put vents that launch the heat up, and you could have all of your thermal components layered up? But I have to see if I can find it, because one of probably my absolute favorite find on the show floor. Here, let me just. I'll play the video of the Nubia while I try and look for this other thing. It was tucked away in a little corner of an Amazon Alexa booth, which was super creepy, because it was like, Amazon Alexa will take over every waking moment of your life in like the most dystopian way possible. But tucked away in the side, I've almost found it. Where is it? There's Alexa. Here it is. But tucked away in the side was North. And I'm going to be harassing the crap out of the folks at North. So what I've got on the video right now, and what you can't see if you're listening to the audio podcast, is I just put on a pair of glasses. They're regular looking, sort of chunky, but regular looking black frame glasses. And I'm putting on a little ring, which has like a little joystick on it. And then what I have is a smartwatch style AR headset. So there's a tiny little Pico projector. It's not like Google Glass. So there's no prism that Borg like sits in front of your eye. Like you don't have this effect of something jutting out from your face. They just look like regular glasses. There's a tiny little light that you can see if you look at them from an angle. But then it just pops up simple wireframe icons and simple pieces of text in your field of view, probably about 3 to 4 feet, maybe a little bit further from your face. So it looks like a little simple icon is floating out in space ahead of you. So, I mean, using the camera, if I were having a conversation with you right now, those types of little lookaways, those types of little gestures that you make in the midst of a regular conversation, it was so easy to keep looking at the woman doing the demonstration and then having little pieces of information pop up, and very quickly and organically just kind of looking off to the side so that it didn't break that face-to-face contact. It's not like full-on AR. It's not like it can paint a map that you can use in full, like, you know, VR style navigation. It's like turn by turn it looks like an old school Garmin. It's just like a little arrow pops up and that's like your turn notification. But it was so clean. It was so well done. This is exactly what I wanted after Google Glass, right? So when Google flopped with Google Glass, it basically set us back years. Because there's no reason why this couldn't have been like Google Glass version 2. Except for the fact that, like Google always does, they completely abandoned that notion. But yeah, so Aditya Anil and Sharil, they look like heads-up display glasses. That's exactly what they are. I want organic pieces of information delivered as simply as possible into my field of view so that I don't have to be distracted by another component. You know, I like smartwatches. I do. But smartwatches are a clumsy evolutionary step towards integrating notifications in a more organic way. So we suffer through this being clumsy because eventually we should get to something that's even more seamless and even more organic. I don't want to have to like pull a phone out of my pocket and look at the notification and put it away. So I wear a smartwatch. But when I'm in the middle of a conversation with someone and a text comes in from my wife, which is one of the few that really purposefully gets my attention, just this act of looking down at my watch is really rude in polite company. So moving that to a pair of glasses, even though we are still talking about minor aspects of distraction, is so much less distracting and less disruptive to the social experience than what we can do with watches. I am so stoked for that. There were a few other things that I got to play with. Let me see if I have the Gigabyte stuff. Some of that Gigabyte stuff was pretty fun too. Let me see if I can find it. All of my videos are basically just in one big bucket. So this is just a wacky company. What is the company called? Hold on. Base Me. That's a terrible name for a company. But wacky little French company. I'm watching a video, and are you gonna freak out on me? So they're like, hey, check out this video. And I've got some Bluetooth headphones on, and then they just rammed this subwoofer up against my chest. And then the whole thing just starts vibrating my entire chest cavity. And it's kind of awesome. And it tickles a lot. I had a lot of fun with that. So I like finding those kinds of things at CES too. Like Lofelt was there. They had that like 2 or 3 years ago. They had a wearable subwoofer that was a watch. Terrible design, but amazing technology. This one looks terrible. It looks like Tony Stark's arc reactor tried to crawl out of his chest and like scramble to his back. I don't love the look, but it worked really well. I don't know that the consumer side of this is necessarily going to be the hotness, but having better haptics, having better force feedback, having better vibration and accessibility for that would be awesome for other uses. Lowfelt, I think, has a contract with Volvo. I think it's with Volvo, where their lane guidance is complemented. So instead of another light or another beep or something on your car dashboard or something that you have to look at, when you start to drift out of your lane, these hypersensitive and super articulated low frequency vibration motors ripple so that you feel it in your butt when you're starting to drift out of your lane. I think we're ignoring an entire aspect of the human condition when we start looking at immersive technologies. I think we've consistently ignored audio. I think we've consistently ignored touch. So like the Taptic engine is a big deal in an iPhone. It really does help improve the feel of typing on a totally flat surface. We can go beyond that. And especially like I get why I get so excited about LG phones and doing things like Boombox. You know, you're using vibration to help communicate more information, but then it can also be used just to like put your phone down on the table and you've got a super loud speaker and you don't need a Bluetooth speaker. It's pretty neat. So, and this is from Sherrill. Wonder if the Bass Me body subwoofer will complement the Razer haptic ecosystem. The Razer haptic ecosystem is built utilizing some of the technology from Lowfelt. So that wearable subwoofer is now being built into gaming headsets, right? So we're finally starting to find better applications, better consumer relatable devices, and that most of this is still built on the traditional channels of information delivery. So this Bass Me speaker, all it's doing is taking you feed it a 5.1 surround sound channel, right? 5.1, 5 speakers, 1 subwoofer. It's just taking the .1, the subwoofer channel, and rumbling like a rumble pack in a game controller. Just it's much, much bigger and way more articulated, and it sits on your chest so that you feel the vibrations that you would have felt, that you would have heard through your headphones. You don't have to combine it with anything else. It's just one additional Bluetooth channel that piggybacks on the same audio signal. That's where we need to go. It's a universally accepted standard. It's interoperable with everything else out there, and it could potentially change the way that we interact with media. I just think the design is kind of ugly, and I want it to not be as ugly. All right, I did find some of the Gigabyte stuff. I always get kind of nerdy about things like, let me go back into screen share. They had a test bench out there that was sick. So this is their new water-cooled open air rig where through all of their Aorus components. Oh, let me just skip that back. Let's see, right about there. Nope, not right there. Right about there. Excuse me. This was this was overclocked to 5 gig on air. Just a really crazy great test bench. So with Gigabyte showing off really cool and exciting new technologies, like some of their test systems were really sharp looking, and oh, that didn't work. Let's try that. Yeah, that's better. That's a really sexy machine. All of the Aorus, that Aorus is like their high-end label. The system that wigged me out the most was this slushy machine. I forget what the company was. Mod My PC, I think it is. They engineered their own slushy cup to be the reservoir for the cooling block, and oh man, did that look so cool. This handily took my favorite PC of CES 2019, and also, you know, again, cable management on point, all of the custom fittings, like that looks like a hilarious work of art. I was really excited about that. But Gigabyte and Aorus also were showing off like crazy monitor technologies. Aorus is going to have a new gaming monitor with a hardware layer heads-up display that allows you to customize your own sights, like your own reticule for first-person shooters. So if you don't have something that you want, you can draw, like literally, like it looks like an old paint program. You draw in this grid and you can make your own crosshairs in a game, and it's independent of the software. So it can't be detected if, you know, you're accused of using like a software cheat or something like that. And then they're also doing this new I couldn't show like what I wanted to show. I couldn't really get it on my smartphone camera. But their new monitor also will do interjection of black frames. So it's a 144 hertz monitor. It's recycling 144 times per second. But every 6 to 8 frames, they'll just throw in a pure black frame to sort of chop up and slow down the response. And psychologically, this has a crazy effect that when you start gaming on super high-end, high refresh rate gear, the human body has a natural tendency to overreact to how fast that twitch can be. So we're now psychologically building dead frames into that stream so that you will slow down your movements. You won't overcorrect. And they're calling it like an aim assist. But I gamed on it for about 10 minutes, and it's shocking that even when they tell you this is what's happening, and then they turn it back off, how wildly out of control the exact same game felt. All because my eyes were now feeding my hands a very different stream of information. So stuff like that I think is going to be really sick. But yeah, so everything, like picture-in-picture, heads-up display, tactical information, custom crosshairs, all of that built into the hardware of the monitor. And then they're also employing a bunch of noise canceling technologies. So not for you to listen. So if you're really into gaming, the new Aorus monitor is going to have 3 microphones that reduce the noise of your environment so that your teammates can hear you better, which I thought was just kind of novel. Like if you're really into gaming, the noise reduction was very lossy. So it really did degrade the quality of the voice, but it was hyper fast. So incidental noises like key strikes, like gaming keyboards are usually kind of clacky, right? A good gaming keyboard should make some noise. But this noise reduction tech was super aggressive at finding those peak sounds of key travel and pulling that information out of the audio that you were sending to your teammates. I've never heard anything like that because my big problem with active noise canceling headphones is that they're really good for droning noise. You're on an airplane, you can kill the engines, right? You can block the sound of engines. But you're still probably going to hear that baby screaming next to you because that's unpredictable sound. That sound that spikes and changes and adapts, and the headphones can't really pull out incidental noises. Aorus, their solution, cuts into the human voice and it makes you sound a little robotic, but it really did pull that information out of your audio stream. And the fact that it's all built directly into the monitor itself, no additional drivers, no other installation, no extra software that you have to run on the PC that you're also gaming with. There was a lot of that at this show that I was very excited by. Not the most exciting to make videos about. Like, that's not the big blow the doors off announcement that we kind of expect from trade shows, but tons of quality of life improvements to consumer electronics. And that to me is just awesome. That's the kind of stuff I absolutely love. Let me see. So one of the dumbest things I did, I've already done like 2 videos on this, but I just have to pull it back up because, again, it was dumb. It was real dumb. Let me see if I can find it because it's actually from a Black Magic video file, and I'm actually not sure if this will play in browser. But first day I landed at CES, I got there on Monday, and oh, here it is. Okay, good. I got in on a Monday, and Monday was also PepCom. PepCom is there are 2 shows within a show. For CES, you can get sort of they're media and industry only, and they're much smaller, more intimate, far fewer crowds. And PepCom and Showstoppers are great resources for getting hands-on and interacting with things. So at Newegg, we wanted to shoot some like, hey, we just hit the ground, we're off and running, CES, and here are a few things that are just whetting our appetite for the main show floor. CES opens up the next day. But here's PepCom, and here's some of the stuff that we're excited about. And so I'm there with my cameraman, Brian, and I'm kind of producing the segment. So, of course, like a dork, I do one lap around PepCom, and I'm like, hey, there's this company, Fight Camp, and they're doing it's like Peloton for boxing. It's not like a VR game. It's like you get a full punching bag. Actually, here, let me show you. This is what it looks like when an actual boxer does the thing. Hold on, let me see if I can find a good clip. Where'd it go? I just had her just a second ago. Oh, here she is. No, I can't play it. Ah, dag. All right. I'm just gonna have to do my video. Sorry, guys. This is me. On the Patreon, I actually have the full 4-minute video, completely uncut, showing off what it is. But you've got these sensors in your gloves. They do these full wraps. Thankfully, they kind of coach me a little bit because I've never studied boxing. I'm a former dancer. But they get me all set up. And they had a woman there who's like, I think she's ranked. I think she's a legit fighter. If not just one of the best trainers I think I've ever met. Hold on. Come on. Keep going. So they get me all set up and she's like, hey, do you want to spar? And I'm like, no, because I'll die. But the dumb thing is this was the very first thing I did at PepCom. So fighters have to train hard. Like, that in your brain. But I'd never tried throwing jabs and throwing punches and throwing hooks for 2 minutes straight. And by the end, I was pretty well gutted. See, like right here in this video, like I can't breathe, I can't talk, my legs are failing me. I was really happy, like I could keep my hands up. Like I was still, my form sucked, but I was still kind of throwing some loose jabs. But yeah, like I couldn't walk. So that was the first thing I did at PepCom, and then I had to go and shoot at like 5 more booths. Like sweat is pouring. So tell me about the new HyperX headset. Oh, that's very interesting. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. It was an entire evening of Juan makes poor life choices. It was pretty good. So the funky thing about covering a show like CES is if you go out on your own, then from Sharel Abdul-Rahman, how did they pick up the punch data? Multiple antennas? There's sensors in the gloves. So part of that video, you're gonna actually see they're putting sensors in the gloves, and they're the same kinds of trackers that they say they're the same kinds of trackers that pros are using to kind of track force data. But it's a lot like it looks a lot like a pedometer for a punch, right? It's just a tiny little sensor, and it probably tracks a certain angles and stuff like that. Aditya Anil, some boxing guy. Woof. Not so much. Abraham Artemis, that face at the end. Hold on, let me go back into the screen share. Adrian! But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's some kind of gyro or just some kind of accelerometer. But yeah, sorry. Back to what I was saying. So I was obviously there to work the show for Newegg. So we were covering more vendors and partners, and Newegg has a bunch of videos from CES out. Thankfully, they're getting the videos out faster this year than they did last year. But it's always interesting. Like when I had to go and cover CES for myself, you would really try and hustle and try and catch all of these show floor videos. And I think the tone has changed a little. Unless you're one of the few outlets that's breaking an announcement, there's not a lot of traffic on trying to put together, hi, I'm here at CES and I'm looking at this new motherboard and let's talk all about it. And here's this cool thing. And we can I'll say that we really like consumer electronics, and then I can bugger off. Those videos don't track very well, so I really did try to focus more this year on doing some more vloggy style content. They're a little longer, but you can cover multiple topics, and then also you get to show off some behind the scenes. I was really impressed in terms of where we might be able to go with that. Insta360 had a great booth. I've reviewed one of their 360-degree cameras, and I'm hoping I'll be able to play with their new one soon. But oh, here, let me pause this so I can actually get back into screen share. This to me looks more exciting than like the DJI. So there was this little DJI camera that a ton of people were using and showing off on the show floor. That doesn't really do it for me. And then GoPro was also trying to make a big claim for content creators and vloggers and things like that. And I'm not really sold on a GoPro for that style of video. But Insta360 has something that I think could be kind of interesting for content creators, where it's a 360-degree camera, but the whole point of it is to shoot normal video. So you capture everything around you, and then in post, you can basically, you have like a cameraman that can follow action wherever you want to put it. That to me is actually becoming one of the most interesting uses of 360 video. Not, hey, I made this spherical video, but you can make perfect stabilization because the camera is always capturing everything. So where a GoPro, even with really good stabilization, might still get wobbly and wonky, a 360 camera can always perfectly tracked because it always has every piece of information around its around its environment. So that to me is, I'm really hoping I can spend some time on that, because that's really impressive performance. You know, full flip, full swing, and the camera can always track me exactly where I'm at, and I never lose it. And then I just have to add a little time in post to tell like an app on a phone, follow me over here, and then I want you to pan over and look at this over here, and then come back, and then you can do this, and then you can show me all these other things. So that to me would be a better future for vlogging content, on the run, show floor content. Because I mean, imagine the walk and talk that you can do. I could just stand in between a product and myself at a booth. Like I could do the initial talking directly to the camera, and then I just tell the app, I'll flip around and then shoot video of that, and then come back to me, and then make a 16:9, 1080p video that looks pretty good. That to me sounds way more exciting. From Aditya and Nil, you vlogged and edited solely on the V40. That was crazy. Where's my V40? Where'd it go? I've lost my phone. That's probably bad. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Aditya Anil, you vlogged and edited solely on the V40. That was crazy. You should start maybe a challenge, pure phone shot and edited video like the old phone challenge you had last year. So yeah, everything I did at CES, every single thing was shot in 4K, edited, rendered, uploaded, transitions, graphics, text. I mean, it wasn't fancy. It's definitely dirty, vloggy video, but everything was done from the phone. I brought my laptop. I did not open it once. So I'm going to continue making that argument of make more things. Do more stuff from your phones. They're ridiculously powerful. They're stupid expensive now. And I don't really feel people understand just what capabilities you really have, right? You know, you're going to spend $700, $800, $900, $1,000 on a smartphone. What are you doing with it? And what could you be doing with it that's actually not as painful as people are pretending it is? Editing on a phone is a lot of fun. I'm going to have a video going out tomorrow just recapping specifically using the V40 as a content creation platform. So be on the lookout for that on the YouTube channel, because that'll be out tomorrow afternoon. Sharil Abdul Rahman, thankfully that 360 video output is high enough now that you can cap it to 1080 without needing to reduce the video quality. That was a big deal. A lot of these cameras were UHD. So the final 360 video was UHD, but that means it's UHD stretched all the way around your head, which meant wherever you were looking really had the video quality of like standard definition. They're now all moving to 5K. I think this one is 5.7K. And now wherever you're looking, I think is, if you do the math on optics and arc degrees, I think it's now closer to 1080p everywhere you look. Awesome. That's perfect. From Sharil also, I'm seeing more content creators using 360 cameras but outputting it as normal video. I think that's the killer app for 360 that we were all overlooking. From Artemis, from Abraham Artemis, that really looks interesting. Oh, people are still trying to help Sherrill with his Windows Vista issues, so that's pretty bad. So, TK Bay, we want some dancing guy Insta 360 videos now. Oh, TK. Actually, what we need to do is everybody, I need everybody in this live stream to kick mine and TK's butts so that we'll finally finish up some of the collaborations that we've had planned. We wanted to do some year-end wrap-up videos together, and then life got in the way and planning for CES got in the way. So I need everyone on the regular to be harassing TK and I on our social media channels that will finally get together. He's got some Huawei gear. I've got some, I want to do some comparisons with OnePlus and with the Razer phone. I mean, I know we're all getting excited about the next generation of phones, but there's some stuff out right now that we should be dealing with. So I need everyone's help to constantly be on our case to wrap that up. I think to close out this podcast, the big life achievement for me this year at CES actually had very little to do with the show floor. And it was an amazing team effort at Newegg to help clean up something that I don't even think people knew that Newegg was doing. But Newegg is a distributor. They sell products. They sell components. That means they have to have good relationships with manufacturers and different vendors. But Newegg does an awards show every year. Excuse me. They do the Eggy Awards, and you get like a really nice, high-quality gold egg. Actually, let me see if I can find. I had a photo, a terrible photo, of what an Eggy looks like. So, in years past, these awards weren't particularly super desirable, just because Newegg people, Newegg. Not CEO. I can't remember what the internal corporate structure at Newegg is, but you don't want to upset vendors and say, well, one vendor was better than another, and so they'd get an award, but kind of like everybody got a participation trophy kind of a thing. Last year they tried to put together a very quiet ceremony, and again, it seemed like it was kind of dull. They had Trisha and I just shoot like a couple year-end wrap videos, like this year we moved this much production through this channel, and everyone had growth, and it was very interesting, and GPUs and CPUs and Intel and AMD and NVIDIA. This year they wanted to do a real hosted award show, and so they leaned on Trisha and I to create more content. We played some games, watching people from major companies like Intel and Acer and Asus and Ingram, and be on stage and play wacky crowd games while there was some alcohol out in the venue was kind of amazing. But I'd never done anything like actually hosting an awards show before. This was kind of a big deal for us, and let me see if I can pull this up. This might not play very well, but like this was the stage that we had for the Eggy Awards. This was at Hakkasan in the MGM Grand, and we were immediately followed by Tiesto. So I can now put on a resume that like I was an intro act for Tiesto. You can even see the Eggies like out on the DJ booth right there. They had kind of a Ready Player One theme, so Trisha and I were dressed up ridiculously in light-up clothing. You can't see it very well right here, but I had light-up suspenders and a light-up bow tie with a light-up fedora, and she had a sparkly dress on. This was maybe one of the most fun things I've done in a long time. I haven't been on stage in years. From Sherrill Rahman, echoing someone just now, I got this tweet. You were lit. I think I put that on Instagram. I'm getting lit up, literally, for hosting the Eggy Awards. But, it's just, it was an amazing experience. And getting to do this kind of live work with someone that I really like working with. Trisha is an amazing person to host with. And first of all, I just don't know that I would have wanted to do anything like this without her backing me up and without backing her up. But it was kind of amazing. I like playing to. Well, first of all, I just like doing live, right? I like doing things in real time. You get to see all of the seams. Everything's falling apart. Everything's a catastrophe, and then you still need to put on a show. It's why I love doing morning news in LA, because literally every single news broadcast I've done is like catastrophe. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. We're live. Okay, well, let's do this product demo, and then it has to work. From Aditya Anil, SGG featuring Tiesto. Maybe the other way around. But we were on stage in front of all of the top players in the consumer electronics and consumer distribution tech space, having fun. And Trisha is an amazing partner to yes and with. She's sharp, she's smart, she's funny, and she knows when to throw a safety net, and she also knows when to throw you just a little more rope, you know? So, you know, I'd maybe get a little silly, like AMD won an award, and she's walking back to greet them as they're coming up onto the stage to accept their award, and they're handing them the Eggie as I go, and here's the team from AMD rising up the stage. And she calls me out on it, and we have this little banter back and forth on stage. And it was just such an amazing moment for me. Like, I got to dad joke AMD. This is awesome. So we did that Thursday night. It was kind of the perfect way to wrap up CES. So that was my CES. While we still have about 10 minutes here, I actually managed to finish a podcast under time. I had a really hard time summing up this CES. What were some of your thoughts, for those of you still watching the live stream here? What were some of your thoughts about this CES? I felt it was really broad. I actually thought there was a lot of cool stuff there. Not much of it was headline worthy. But like I said before, tons of quality of life improvements to tech that we saw last year, and much wider classifications of electronics. Like a lot of lifestyle companies making gadgets, like Peloton for boxing, right? That's a cool techie way to try and get a workout and to try to improve fitness. Another one that was kind of crazy, if I can find it, was going to the LG booth. I really liked the LG booth because they had some geeky techie things like, well, here's like the TV. You know, they have the roll-up TV and like, okay, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's an interesting piece. And yeah, it rolls up and it rolls down. That doesn't really get me super excited. But their whole booth was set up so that computers and phones were in the middle, and then spread out along the walls were audio components and refrigerators and washer dryers, because it was all about tying together the different lifestyle products. So like, for example, right now I'm showing on the video, they've got a smart beer brewer. It's a capsule-based craft beer maker. Like, again, LG is making the argument that we can connect all of these various aspects of your life. Well, we've been claiming smart home and automation and IoT for a while, but now I feel like we're actually starting to get real things there. So that to me was the major theme of CES, was tech can be very, very broad. Electronics can be very, very broad, and we can include a lot of different things in all these different tech scenarios. From Aditya Anil, maybe Razer will hook you up with an RGB suit for the Eggies next year. We actually priced one out. They're not cheap, but I wanted like a fiber optic suit. And we were going to get Trisha like this sort of cyberpunk fiber optic sleeveless hoodie, and then like a really cute skirt and some combat boots. And then we were looking at a suit for me, and just one of those pieces, like just the suit jacket, was going to be like 3 times our approved wardrobe budget. But the show went so well and the vendors loved it. We got great feedback. So I'm hoping next year we'll be able to put together something even better. From the nitpicker, Demir Frank, who we got to meet up. I actually got to meet face to face with Demir Frank, and I was really happy that we got to spend a minute together because my schedule was screwed up. The nitpicker, CES was a bit disappointing for tech I'm interested in. That is absolutely accurate. There were so few things that I felt I could make videos about, but there were a lot of lifestyle components that I thought, okay, now we're seeing something that could be kind of interesting. Let's see. From Gary Fleshner, this year, like, the big blockbuster device was missing. Completely agree with that. But there was a benefit for there not being one big product sucking all the wind out of the sails. Every single, like, little accessory booth, like, here, like, there were a ton of companies showing off things like turntables, right? Victrola is now being licensed out, and they're making a whole new line of suitcase and desktop vinyl. The closest I think we had to, like, a big announcement, let me see if I can find it, because we got Zach in the background. You know, I was at the Royal booth, and the foldable phone just didn't really do it for me, but we were all hoping to see if Zach's jerry rig was going to snap a phone in half. I really wanted to see him try and snap a phone in half because they wouldn't give me one. But I'm trying to find something for real here. Like, awesome audio manufacturing, like Shure, a really trusted name in high-end recording gear, making a microphone. That could be really exciting. And then, am I missing it? I hope I didn't delete it. Sorry, I'm just going to take one more second to look for it, and then if I can't find it, I can't find it. Samsung's booth I thought was kind of underwhelming. Oh man, I guess I don't have them anymore. So I also went to the Aftershocks booth, but I don't see it here. So the Aftershocks booth was kind of cool because they have a new headset that's going to be fully submersible. So I love bone conduction, but if you want Bluetooth, you can't really have that kind of stuff. So they have a new MP3 player that is totally sealed up, totally waterproofed, and you can use it underwater. So those types of things, like, that's actually really cool. But in years past, when there would be one big, huge announcement and everyone would flock to that booth, smaller companies wouldn't get that much press. So I would go to the Aftershocks booth and it was surprisingly busy. And they were saying, like, for us, this was a great CES because no one was stuck in one hall or in one booth or in one part of the show. Like, auto tech was cool, but it wasn't dominating the discussion. And so crowds were way more spread out. And a lot of companies that normally didn't get a lot of traffic were getting some better foot traffic this year. So that to me was maybe the takeaway. Like, again, nothing huge, but a lot better spread across the entire CE industry. Yeah, so Sharil Abdul Rahman replying to Sean, AMD will shine better at Computex. I think Computex is going to be pretty killer this year. There are enough transitionary technologies that I think we'll have some cool stuff to show off. Let's see. I got to hook up with the folks at One More, so I'm hopefully going to be doing some reviews on their new headphones coming out. From Aditya Anil, like you mentioned, and a bit too much of Alexa, but the laptops were amazing, phones were notchless, and that heads-up display has piqued my interest. I have a lot of things that I need to follow up on. I've got a stack of business cards here from people that I want to reach out to and hopefully build some better relationships, especially audio and health tech too. People asking if KZ was at CES. I don't think they are. They typically don't put money towards any kind of advertising like that. And then there was a good fight for TVs. TCL and Hisense both showing off ultra low cost but nicer spec'd 4K TVs. And we're starting to get large format 4K TVs at around that $350 price point, just in time for 8K TVs that are totally useless right now. Huzzah! From Art Dog, I watched a few YouTubers stream. From a tech standpoint, it didn't do a lot for me. From Paco Street, did I miss any mention about Nubia Red Magic Mars? I didn't mention it. The Nubia that I spent time with, I really wanted to see the Nubia X. So that's really all I focused on after having such a frustrating experience with their PR. From Fat Produce, that display that displays personalized advertising was really interesting. There were a couple companies out there trying to talk about better ad demographics and better marketing potential, but I don't know. I mean, it again, the practical application of that as a service could be kind of neat, but I have a hard time getting into what that announcement was or what that might mean, or how do you even talk about that in a video and make it sound kind of interesting. From LGH Delta, how big was Harman at CES? They claimed their own spot at IFA. Did they do this at CES as well? I don't remember them being on the show floor, but again, I was mostly off the show floor this year. A lot of the meetings that I took were either at the Venetian, which is sort of the staging ground for CES, or in hotels. So like ASUS gets like an entire floor of a hotel, of a tower, and just makes each room and a part of the ASUS experience. So they have a booth at the show floor, but if you really want to go hands-on, you get the private meeting, you get this full tour, they give you a sandwich, and then you can play with all of the new ASUS gear. I got to see the Dominus, all of the new Tough Gaming line. They have an all AMD laptop, which was kind of cool, but that's not something that you spend a lot of time with on the floor. So unfortunately, if Harman was there, I just missed them. If they weren't there, I wouldn't have been particularly surprised. From Sean H, seems like most big companies want to announce their good stuff at other events where they get all or a lot more of the attention. I think Samsung set the stage for that. Samsung showed like, well, if you're going to go to MWC, we can pre-brief 2 weeks before, and then we can announce in New York the week before MWC and beat everyone to the punch. And that's super frustrating. I am really freaking sick of having to do standalone trips to go and cover a product announcement. Like, I didn't do anything Samsung last year. I didn't. It's a pain. It's expensive. It prevents you from working on anything else. And they do it because they think they have a total lock on that, but they're starting to lose a few more of us like Ronin content creators and content producers. Like, it's just not fun to talk about if all you're doing is purposely preventing me from getting anything else done. And I don't really want to support that anymore. It's especially now that these announcements aren't even that exciting. Like, we're all confident we're going to get a Galaxy S10, 10th anniversary Galaxy phone, blah, 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 blah. It's going to have the fastest processor and the bestest screen and great cameras. And okay. I mean, if Samsung can wow me, cool, but they can wow me from Los Angeles. They don't. I don't need to be wowed in New York. So, folks, I think that's about as good a place to wrap up as any. CES is always a trip. It's one of the few times I get to interact face-to-face with some of my favorite YouTube and tech reviewers and friends that I've made over years of covering this stuff. And it was nice getting to go there with Newegg's resources so that we could take some fun meetings and I could get some fun content. I'm going to have all of the vlogs are out. I have 4 daily vlogs. And then tomorrow I'm going to have the recap video talking about what it was like to produce with the LG V40, where last year for CES I did I did the whole show on the LG V30. There's some of the differences, and then also like did it improve? Did it get better? Were some things more difficult? That video will be out tomorrow. It's already in preview on Patreon. If you're following the Patreon, you can already watch that video now. And then this week, a little housekeeping. I have a lot of tech to catch up on. October of last year was a rough month for everybody, but my October turned into my November, and so I am just now getting back to a handful of phones that need to have a little bit more testing done to them. So like I mentioned, I finally got a Razer phone in. We've got to talk about a few things here. I'm not particularly interested in doing a review on the Razer phone. In fact, the whole
so it's a phone for gamers, but is it a good phone for non-gamers? Like, I've seen so many dumb videos reviewing the Razer phone, the non-gamer review. Like, that's clever, right? That's like me picking up a Pixel and saying, I'm gonna review the Pixel, but I'm never gonna use the Google Camera app, and I won't use any of Google's upgrades or updates. Like, you buy a Pixel because you want like good software support from Google, and you want that Google Camera app. Why are we reviewing the Razer phone by not gaming on it? Like, that's dumb. So I'm not particularly interested in doing like my traditional, like, well, it's got a phone and here are the bands and here's the Wi-Fi support. Like, all of that's kind of been talked to death already. But there is some stuff that I want to cover for things like Twitch streaming, how to do multi-streaming off of a mobile device. And then I've already started running a few of my work benchmarks. And it's really sad that if people ignored the Razer phone as a productivity platform, then they missed out on quite possibly the most powerful phone of last year. In much the same way that I use my Razer gaming laptop, and I've mostly used it as a way to cut, edit, render, and upload 4K video on the go, because gaming hardware is crazy powerful. So I'm playing around with a few videos like that, maybe some showdowns between Huawei and OnePlus. And then again, like I said, I need everyone to kind of kick my ass about getting back in touch with TK so that we can work on some stuff together, because now would be the right time. Do some fun collaborations and do some wacky challenges. If you have a good idea for a wacky challenge, drop me a comment down below this video, because I want to have more fun with this. I think all of us are getting burnt out on just the normal, here's a really pretty outdoor shot of a phone, and now let's talk about the design. I would love to. Boy, this phone feels really nice in the hand. And it's got a glass back. And it's got a screen with a notch on it. And I also ran Geekbench. And the Geekbench scores are good, but not as good as another phone, but better than another phone. So that's the phone review. Better luck next year, manufacturer. I like a different manufacturer's phone better. It's garbage content, right? We need to do something else, something better. Sean H. Pan shot on a table. Rack focus to a small potted plant or some kind of, indoor house plant to the phone. Look, here's an action figure. Let me test the speaker by playing 3 seconds of a song, but I'll use a different song so that you can never compare any of the phone speaker tests that I do. That's how you do a phone review in 2018. Well, it's 2019 now, and I want to do more fun things. So instead of really focusing on the same format, I want to do does it live up to the claim? And the V40 has been the perfect platform to start that with. Because LG's making the argument again that you can do real content creation from a phone. And that to me lives up to the claim. So they are operating where they should be. Razer's making a very different argument about what should be on a phone for a specific demographic. And they're not making the argument that your grandmother should use this phone, right? So why are we reviewing it under the same format? Does not make any sense to me. So that's Cranky One. I'm all out. We're going to keep moving on. But there's going to be some fun stuff coming up on the channel. This week is probably going to end up being a little Patreon heavy. The first 2 videos that I really want to get done are the audio reviews for the Razer phone and for the Mate 20. Not the Mate 20 Pro, but I got a Mate 20 and it's got a headphone jack, and we should probably talk about if it's a good headphone jack or not, because it's not just enough in this day and age to keep legacy hardware. We've got examples of amazing audio processing capabilities on some devices that are in the same price tier, in the same price league. So we need to do a little conversation about that. Those are going to be patron exclusives. And then I think after that next week, I'll finally be back on track for some normal comparisons and some tips and tricks videos and some other fun stuff too. Let's see. Sean H. Succulent shots, baby. I need to get like a fern. Just like rack focus from a fern for no good reason. From Pacos, Paco Saint or Paco Street, Paco ST. Using the phone for video editing is cool. Not sure if just how unfair it would be with HDMI enabled devices though. Huawei and Note 9 have a few other unfair advantages. Not only, I won't call them unfair advantages, I'm just gonna say they're straight up awesome advantages. When you plug a phone into a TV or into a monitor and then it becomes a computer, that's an awesome advantage to have. Goran Petrovic, I like when reviewers take off the huge ugly case to review the phone and talk about their beautiful colors. Right, again, because this is my V40. This is what my V40 really looks like. And anyone who comments, I've had so many comments about, oh, what about those terrible stickers? My daughter put these stickers on the back of my phone, and I care more about having her faded, terrible Batman and Flash stickers. My 3-year-old said, Daddy, I want to put superhero stickers on your phone. And she picked out the Flash and Batman. My top 2 favorite DC superheroes. Like, she knows. Like, hell, I'm ever going to take these off, even though they're completely unidentifiable at this point. So I love the comments I get. I'm like, oh, that's not what the phone. Like, that's what the phone looks like, because that's how I have to use the phone. I don't use the phone naked. That's not what the phone looks like. So that's BS. They're like, oh, it's so beautiful. No, it's not, because it's in a big ugly case because you made the phone very fragile. But again, I digress. Abraham Artemis, don't forget that D brand sponsorship. Okay. I wish actually, you know what? I'll be frank with you folks. I kind of wish I was rolling in a little extra D brand cash after the holidays. But well, I don't know. Maybe we'll work on that for this year too. We're running over on time. This podcast run long enough, and I held on to the voice, so we're going to call that a victory. Folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, sharing, subscribing. There's a lot of fun stuff getting back up to speed on this YouTube channel. If you care to get the inside scoop, early access to videos, behind the scenes content, production diaries, and the audio and camera reviews that are going to be coming out soon, the only place to catch all of that is patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. And there's also a cool little community of like-minded tech fans. I have a lot of fun in the comments on a lot of the content that I've been putting out recently, and that's really what's enabling me to do deeper dives on tech and on testing this stuff. I wouldn't have been able to do my deep dive on LDAC and aptX Bluetooth codecs if it hadn't been for their support, and literally, you know, both moral support and financial support. That's the space us YouTubers are in right now. As so many more of my videos are getting demonetized, I'm running into more and more copyright issues. I tried to use public domain music in one of my videos, and I got a copyright flag on it, which would have killed all of the monetization on 2 weeks worth of work of analysis, of testing, and of shooting video, editing, and uploading, all because a company not rightfully claimed copyright, and YouTube is not enabling content creators to fix those kinds of problems. So increasingly, that kind of content and that kind of analysis is going to go towards the areas of the internet that are helping to support that kind of production. On SomeGadgetGuy.com, there's a whole place where you can find other ways to support production on this channel, but the direct one-to-one is maybe the most fair economically. I mean, you can pay $1, get access for a month, bugger off for a couple months, then come back and see if I've got anything new. You don't have to stick with it if you don't want to. And it's really empowered me to continue producing the kind of content I want without having to just make endless clickbaity, terrible thumbnailed YouTube videos. Like, the stuff that traffics well and gets all the SEO is not necessarily the kind of content I want to make. So this is my beginning of the year pitch and plea for supporting the content creators that you like, maybe even if it's not me. If there are people you do enjoy their content, help them out, because right now we're all kind of struggling. All of us. All of us are going through some form of existential crisis as to what the future of our channels will look like. And I won't name names, but I'm hoping to have a few more creator chats coming up where I don't think you'll be too surprised, but it's not an encouraging sign of the times. So, you know where you can find me around the whole rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Instagrams. Thank you so much for everyone who joined this live stream. This was a really fun chat to read through. You guys are always a lot of fun to engage with, especially as we move from fun conversations to heady political topics. I love that those of you that are participating are game for grown-up discussions of really, really fun, wacky things. So I appreciate you. I love you all so much. And yeah, 2019, getting started with the bang, and we're going to make some cool stuff. So, you know where you can find me next week, Monday morning Tech Chat Show. I'm going to be right back here doing another live stream, another live broadcast, talk about all the news stories. Until then, be awesome with your technology. Do awesome with your technology. Have a lot of fun, and I'll catch you next week on the SGG QA podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.